My name is Emily Hughes. I work on our the PIC-SURE platform, which is a data exploration and cohort building tool that's available on BDC. And I'm joined today in this section by Helen Pan. Helen, I'm not sure if you want to introduce yourself quickly.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Helen Pan. I'm a senior bioinformatician at RTI, focusing on data harmonization and standardization on multiple NIH projects to foster data sharing.
Wonderful. So today we're going to dive in briefly. We've heard about the wonderful data that is coming over to BDC from the Sickle Cell group. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about how to explore that data or how to use that data on BDC.
Okay, so we just learned from Tabitha that the SCDIC and NHDR has collected a very rich data set for the sickle cell research. So as part of the study, we performed a secondary analysis on using the SCDIC and other sickle cell data sets to address a research question. So we wanted to share our experience on identify data sets for your research. So hydroxyurea is the first and then effective SCD therapies, but there are some barriers to hydroxyurea use. So what factors would affect a patient's decision to stop hydroxyurea use? It's not really well studied, so we wanted to explore the factors associated with hydroxyurea use and the discontinuation after the initial use. So some factors would include some demographic factors and the clinical outcomes. So Emily now will demonstrate how to identify relevant data sets at Biodata Catalyst. Emily, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Helen. So now that we've heard a little bit about the research problem or the research focus that we're interested in for this demonstration, I briefly wanted to introduce a little bit about the tool that we'll be using. So Biodata Catalyst enables data exploration and cohort building through a tool called Biodata Catalyst powered by PIC-SURE. And so PIC-SURE allows you to search across the entire data dictionary. You can apply filters on variables of interest or at the genomic variant level. So by applying these filters, you're actually applying inclusion criteria to select a specific subcohort of participants. So once you've built your query or you've applied your filters, you're able to retrieve participant counts based on these filters. So this is very helpful for performing quick back of napkin power calculations or feasibility studies to determine what data is available, rough estimate of how much is available, and is this enough data for me to do the analysis that I have planned. If you're authorized to access a data set, you're actually able to export participant level data. So once you've created your subcohort, you can take the data associated with those participants and export it to an analysis workspace. And this allows you to kind of get kickstarted or jump-started on your research by not having to deal with files or manually manipulating and managing data sets. I quickly wanted to review the two access levels that are available with PIC-SURE. There's Open PIC-SURE and Authorized PIC-SURE. So as a brief overview, Open PIC-SURE is a publicly available site, so there's no login required. You are able to search across all data that's available in Biodata Catalyst, but you can't access the participant level data. So we do some things to protect that participant level data, such as obfuscating the aggregate counts that you receive after building your cohort and not allowing export of data. On the other hand, authorized PIC-SURE requires a login, so is not publicly available. You will need to use an ERA Commons account to log in to use this site. Additionally, you can only search across studies that you're authorized to access. So we have a few publicly available studies, such as tutorial or training data sets for you to kind of get your feet wet and understand how the platform works. But you will also have access to any data sets that you have an active data access request for through dbGaP. But because you're able to access that data, you're able to get down to the participant level data and actually export that data. So that's why it's a little different than open. You can actually get a little bit further with authorized access. And today I'll be demoing authorized access, but you can certainly follow along on open access or open picture. And I'm sure one of my colleagues will drop the link in the chat for me. So if you want to follow along with today's demo, you certainly can. All right, so let's hop into it then. So flipping over here to this Biodata Catalyst tab, I have now logged into authorized access on Picture, and this is what it looks like. This is the landing page after I log in. And the first thing I want to draw your attention to is actually the data access dashboard. So if I go to this page or this tab, I can see this table of all of the studies that are available in Biodata Catalyst. So there are quite a few, I think over 130 at this point. And so in order to narrow down my focus here, since we're focused on sickle cell disease, I'm actually able to search and I can start typing sickle cell. And I can see all of the studies related to sickle cell anemia or sickle cell disease that come back. And scrolling down a little bit here, we can see we've got quite a few sickle cell disease related data sets. And we can actually see here's the one that was mentioned in the talk just previously, the SCD-NHDR study. I also want to point out that we have a link to the Cure Sickle Cell metadata catalog that was mentioned earlier. So clicking this link actually takes you to that study's page or that study's information on the metadata catalog. So it's a great way to dive even deeper into the study design and the information that's available in the study. So highly recommend you explore that. But today, let's focus on exploring the data, getting into it, and starting to create cohorts. So actually what I'm going to do is tell you about a little tip or a little picture trick that you can use to search across the entire study's data dictionary. So one good way is to take note of this study accession number or PHS number. So this is the unique study identifier. And what I'm doing here is just copying it so I can use it later. So if I scroll back up, I'm going to go ahead and go over to Authorized Access tab now. So this is where I'm actually going to do my search and do my filtering and start getting into the data. So here you can see there's a search bar where I'm going to search for a term or variables of interest. But first I want to go through what this results panel is all about. So we can see here that right now I haven't added any filters. So this is all of the participants I have access to, right? Because I'm logged in, here's who I can access or whose data I can access. This number probably looks a bit different for you. I'm logged in as a developer, so I have access to all of the studies for QA purposes. So your number might look a little different. But let's go ahead and dive right in. So I'm actually going to search that PHS or that study accession number that I had gotten earlier from the data dashboard. So by searching this, I can see that Picture went ahead and returned all variables that are related to my term. So what Picture is doing behind the scenes is searching across all parts of the data dictionary for each variable. So that includes the variable name, variable description, the values associated with the variable, information about the data set, and information about the study as well. So because I searched that study's ID, I'm getting back all of the information for that study. Over here on the left, there's the option to include only results from the SCD-NHDR study. So I'm going to go ahead and just add that so my future searches are only related to that study. Okay, so now let's start searching stuff about what Helen introduced earlier. So hydroxyurea use, its relation, or what, decision factors as to why people might stop taking hydroxyurea or using hydroxyurea, and also how it relates to any demographics variables or other clinical outcomes. So the first thing I'm going to do is search for hydroxyurea. So now we can see that all of the variables are from this study and are related to hydroxyurea. So I can start reading through them here. There's quite a bit of information or quite a few variables that are related to hydroxyurea. But going over to the next page, I see here that there's a variable that says, have you ever taken hydroxyurea? This sounds really promising because I'm interested in people that have in the past, but now are no longer, and determining the reasons for that. So if I go from this variable, I can actually click this filter icon. And this brings up a view that allows me to apply a filter using this variable. So we can see that this question has two values, either yes or no. So I'm interested in those that, yes, have taken hydroxyurea in the past. I can click Add Filter to Query. And now we see on my results panel on the right here, on the right, 870 participants have taken hydroxyurea as part of this study. And we can see that my filter was added to this box down here. Continuing my review, I see that there's, are you currently taking hydroxyurea? And also, what is the reason you stopped taking hydroxyurea? So let's go ahead and add these variables or add filters of these. So I'm interested in folks that have taken it and have stopped, so are not currently taking hydroxyurea. So let's go ahead and select no for this one. Again, we can see this results panel here has changed a little bit. So now instead of 860, my sub-cohort is down to 116. So I'm getting more and more specific with my inclusion criteria, and I'm narrowing down my cohort further. I can also explore the reasons. So if I add a filter, I can see here listed the reasons that are associated with this variable. So pregnancy concerns, personal preference, side effects, so on. So I want to explore this. I'm going to go ahead and select all of these, right? I'm interested in all of these and want to see the distribution or understand this a bit more. So let's select all. And again, my number didn't change this time, so that means all of the participants have taken it, have stopped taking it, and have done that for some reason that was specified there. I can also search for other variables. So one that was mentioned was a demographics related variable. So let's go ahead and do a pretty basic search for sex. So when I search sex, I see one variable comes up. Similarly, I can select all because right now I'm not focused on one or the other. I'm interested in exploring this. So now that I have a pretty good cohort built, or I'm getting pretty specific with my variables that I'm adding, I wanted to point out the variable distributions tool over here in the tool suite. So by clicking this, what PIC-SURE actually does is based on your selected cohort, so of the 116 participants that I've selected from the NHDR study, it will take the variables that I've filtered on and graph for me the distribution based on those selected participants. So here, this one, it's more of a gut check or a sanity check that this is working how I expect it to. I filtered to only yes, so there's only one bar with yes. But the interesting ones are ones such as sex and also the reasons for stopping. So we can see that, this sex distribution is pretty close to 50-50, but is a little off. So, as I'm thinking about my analysis, maybe I need to consider this slight variation in between males and females. Additionally, I can get a feel for why the majority of people stopped taking hydroxyurea and what was a lesser common reason for stopping taking it. So it's just a quick sneak peek at my cohort, what I've selected so far, and is a good, exploratory tool as I'm figuring out what the inclusion criteria should be for my project. Another thing I wanted to mention, or the last feature I wanted to show as you're exploring your data on here or preparing your data for analysis, is the way that you can think about PIC-SURE is you're sort of building a data frame. So each of the rows of your data frame, if we're thinking of a table, will be a participant. So the participant level data that you'll be exporting, while each of the columns are variables or bits of information that you're interested in. And so the information will be filled out in that table. And so one thing that I can do, let's look at race, for example. Oh, sorry about that. But if I search for race in the SCD NHDR study, I can see that it's actually broken up into many different variables here. And so it's not just one with many categories, it's rather different race variables with true or false associated with it. But I don't want to apply a filter, I'm just interested in this information. So I can actually just add columns to my data frame without applying a filter. And I can do that using this icon over here next to the filter icon. So here, if you notice this variable count on the side here, it will increase the variable count because I'm adding columns to my data frame or adding variables to export. I'll quickly add a variable back because it looks like I got refreshed. So let me just add a variable to simulate, building the cohort. The final piece is to actually select and package your data. So once you have your data frame all set up, once you've applied your filters, you can click the Select and Package Data tool, and you'll have options to package the data. So CSV is the option you can use to do a comma-separated values file or as a Python or R data frame. So there's a couple of options for you for exporting this. PFB is the portable format for biomedical data. This is a new feature that we've created. So currently under development, but let's go ahead and use CSV for now. And once I do this, a dataset ID is generated. So this is what I'll use to export the data at some point or refer back to a data set. But for now, I'd like to save my dataset ID. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and save this for future reference. And so this is a really helpful feature if you're in the throes of exploring the data or getting your hands on the data and you're not quite ready to start analysis or export it yet, you're logging off for the day. I would highly recommend using this feature so that way you can refer back to your data set later when you are ready to export it or start analyzing. All right, that was a very quick demo, and I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Helen to kind of talk about her experience with finding sickle cell data on PIC-SURE.
Great. Yeah, so Emily just demonstrated that we can identify the potential studies and variables related to hydroxyurea use and dive into the study to build cohort of interest from the study and export the participant level data for analysis. So coming back to our question on the discontinuation of hydroxyurea use. So after some explorations and curations, we were able to identify 5 sickle cell study dataset in biodata catalyst and 9 variables relevant to impact hydroxyurea use from more than 7,000 participants to perform the secondary analysis. So we hope this example is helpful to demonstrate how to use BDC to identify the dataset for your sickle cell research.